the holiday spirit, and we would like to discuss the issues that come up with the holiday. And John, this morning, made a presentation of some values that can be cherished around the holidays, and I let her tell you about that.
Okay, John.
We spent a few minutes discussing spiritual values and how they might be, how we might be more mindful of them around the holidays. The discussion seemed to center on generosity and some questions about generosity. But I had a question that was more specific. It had to do with the Thanksgiving experience. At Thanksgiving, we went with my family, and I went to some friend's house for dinner. And the woman is a wonderful cook and had prepared just large quantities of wonderful food, and she had obviously spent a great deal of time and seemed to enjoy cooking. And we all sat down to this beautiful meal, and in about half an hour it was eaten, and she looked around the table, and everyone's sitting there having finished eating, and she said, "Gee, this is all awful too quick." And they tried to come up with some way to make Thanksgiving not be over so quickly. That seemed to be how to make it more meaningful. And so they decided that next year they would start eating at noon and do it in courses and stretch it out till 5:57 at night. And my question was, what is the meaning of this sense of kind of emptiness or disappointment? I've noticed it at Christmas when people are done opening presents, too, on Christmas Eve. There's a sense that there's more, or some disappointment or frustration.
Well, the real issue in these situations is gratifying the ego. And it has never enough. If the lady was slaving over a hot stove, maybe for 2 days or more, and then the whole food is consumed in a half an hour, and chances are she didn't get a single compliment, or maybe very few, or even if she got some compliment, it's never enough. So whenever our basic motivation is ego gratification, and regardless of what holidays or situation, we will always be left with a feeling of emptiness. How many compliments can you get?
Yeah. Even if the meal lasts 12 hours, everyone's over.
Right.
It's not a funny solution. I really like that.
Right. Well, it is very important to outgrow the desire for ego gratification. We have to find something more valid in life that will be fulfilling and bring us a sense of peace rather than disappointment. What could that be?
What was the question?
We have to outgrow the desire for ego gratification.
So, you would outgrow that desire in the process of committing yourself to being here for God.
Yeah, so what's the fun in that?
What fun is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how to... What fun is that?
I'll ask somebody in the class.
Okay. I was not careful. Dr. Herbert J.,
Yes, Jay.
would it be to glorify God and to realize that that's far greater than ego confirmation?
Well, how could we realize that, Jay?
By being interested in what God wants.
By being interested in what God wants. Well, what does He want on Christmas?
Nothing that he doesn't want every other moment.
That's a good answer, Jay. That's a good answer. So when the holidays or parties approach and we are invited or we are giving a dinner or something, it is very important to spend a great deal of time in meditation and in order to purify our motives. And as the situation, as the party goes on or the holidays, we must constantly monitor our thoughts and scrutinize our motives and ask ourselves, what is it that we are looking for? And chances are, if we are honest enough, we will discover that what we really are looking for is ego gratification. We want to be admired, we all want recognition, we want to appreciate it, we want to get compliments, and we want other people to make us feel good. Now, this is so prevalent that it is considered normal. But you know, normal is not very healthy. And certainly always leaves an unpleasant aftertaste.
Dr. Hora,
Yes.
it seems that what people think they are looking for is often, especially when they begin examining, it is often to have other people love them. Or, I want my mother to love me, or my father, or my husband, or my kids. Is that really just another disguised form of I want to feel good? I will feel good if they love me?
That's right, and that means that we want to be confirmed. In other words, we want our egos to be acknowledged in certain ways.
Yeah.
So it is always the basic source of all human dissatisfaction is the universal quest for ego gratification. Now, in metapsychiatry, we learn to be aware of our hidden motives. And we are constantly checking whether we are looking for compliments or admiration and such things which would gratify our egos. And we must always repudiate this tendency and replace it with a knowledge of the fact that we are here for God and to be aware of God's good is the supremely satisfying way of life. Take no thought for what should be or what should not be. Seek ye first to know the good of God, which it already is, and it is spiritual. So we must always look for the good of God in any situation. And then the ego will not meddle and we will find peace, and the holidays and our working days will be peaceful and satisfying. I shall behold thy face in righteousness, and I shall be satisfied when I awake with thy likeness. Who can explain this passage?
I was going to ask a question, so I have a mic, so I'm supposed to answer that.
Okay, go ahead, Anne.
Well, as long as we look at one another's human faces and see things from the standpoint of our own human face, that is our own human identity, seems as if there is no PAGL. But if we can rise out of the sea of people's faces and have our center of attention on the one reality of spiritual values and God's presence, then these ups and downs can even out.
Not only do they even out, Anne, but we shall be satisfied. There will be an awareness that all is well, all is beautiful, all is good and blessed. I shall be satisfied when I awake with thy likeness. If we learn to see God's face in other people's faces, then we will awaken to the awareness that we are God's likeness. And God's likeness is always satisfied. There is no frustration. There is no wanting and not wanting. There is no discontent. There is PAGL. As thou seest, so thou beest. If we see others as living souls, we shall become aware of ourselves as living souls, perfect even as our Creator in heaven is perfect. Any other approach to the holidays or any other situation is immediately polluted by the desire for ego gratification.
It seems as if there are different aspects of ego gratification that come up in different ways, and some of them seem to have an enormous force. And what I'm thinking of is the whole issue around the holidays of obligation. People who are able to rise above a desire to be praised and complimented and so forth still sometimes feel absolutely imprisoned in the sense of the expectations, even the demands of their loved ones and of their own self image, that they must be dutiful to their parents at holidays, or they must not make people unhappy in their family or whatever. And those seem at times insurmountable. And people get caught in, of course, wherever there's obligation, there's also resistance or resentment about the obligation. And people often struggle with wanting and not wanting, and on the level of, do I do this or do I not do it? I wonder if you could speak a little bit more about how being satisfied with seeing God as all in all can help us with the issue of obligation to people, to our loved ones.
Well, I think you dealt with this issue very beautifully in your recent article and in the newsletter. But essentially, thinking in terms of obligation is falling into the error of should thinking. And should thinking is a prolific source of all sorts of aggravations and frustrations and miseries. And we can be alert and mindful to absolutely refuse to think in terms of what should be or what shouldn't be. And then there will be no problem.
This is a problem also that the other people in the family engage in should thinking.
Yes, but that's none of our business.
Correct.
What other people think is none of our business. We respect people's rights to be should thinkers and suffer the consequences.
So, in other words, if we would drop the should in our mind, then we would not give rise to, well, but you can't say that. Because other people would not continue in their should thinking.
Certainly not. We are not concerned with influencing people, Jan. No, we must respect other people's right to be wrong.
Dr. Hora, this is Fern.
Yes, Fern.
Recently, in Thanksgiving, Bill and myself and Julie, we attended an obligatory dinner for Thanksgiving that has been meeting for about, well, I've been in the family 25 years. It's still 5, so, but for many years before that. And I began to notice that it was really very difficult for everyone to be there. We weren't having a particularly hard time. We were just sitting there observing, but everyone wasn't feeling well, and if there was anger being manifest, and someone went home ill, actually, who wanted very much to be there, and the hostess was feeling extremely burdened, and it was difficult, and very crisply insisted on doing it her way, and getting herself into a lot of hot water, and actually hurting herself during the evening. And I began to consider whether it was valid for us to continue participating, or I noticed that I wanted to avoid it. And I said, I don't have to go next year. This could be the last time if I could see what was really going on. So I meditated on it a few days, and it occurred to me that when I thought about my own motives of going, what I was going for, and then I thought about the motives a few weeks later in December, it's kind of my obligation to be the member in the family, Bill and myself really, to put on a Hanukkah celebration where people exchange gifts. And in previous years it became so impossible because the gifts were so numerous and not very well exchanged. It was like a mess instead of appreciated. We kind of put rules on it, like Joan said. We came up with solutions to have each person buy one gift for someone and you pick a name, and that doesn't seem to work either. So obviously the motives are not pure. And I began to look at my own motive, and all of a sudden, each time I meditated, it just seemed right or clear to not participate this year, and to just say awesome to it. And I communicated about it. It wasn't a lot of trouble to communicate it. The thoughts beforehand, both Bill and I prayed on, because there were a lot of shoulds that we should do this, and we should be able to be a beneficial presence even if this is totally invalid, and we should be able to overlook and be loving, and we had lots of thoughts like that. And now, I guess I would like to ask, if we decide, or if it comes to us to not participate, there still is a lot of cleanup work in consciousness. Like John said, the awareness that somebody should come to my attention that's not of my business. So I have to heal myself of that and forgive and keep meditating to hear whatever issues come up. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. That's right.
So even though I won't physically participate mentally, I have all the work to do, just as if I were. It really, the work in consciousness is still to see the motivation, to hear the unloving thought, whether we go or we don't go.
That's right. That's right, sure.
What do we need to see when, like if I notice in my consciousness that I'm making somebody sure of my business, and what's going on in my thought?
Then you have fallen into the trap of self-confirmatory ideation. What will they think if you will not come, or if you will not buy the right present? What will they think of you, etc., etc.? It's a self-confirmatory ideation.
So what is needed at that moment to heal that interest in myself?
Well, the principle about no interaction would help. We must not see ourselves as being in a relationship with anybody. We are individual, unique, living souls, not persons, but presences. And that lifts us out of this human mockery called celebrations and get-togethers and all sorts of obligations. Everybody is miserable. It's interesting that after holidays, our telephones are ringing with people who get sick from it.
What is the nature of the miserableness? When you say everybody is miserable, that just rings so true. Even when you're having a good time, you're really miserable. I mean, you can see the misery.
Yes, because it is based on the false premise of self-confirmatory ideation. The idea of a good time is based on self-confirmation rather than of God confirmation, of awareness of the presence of the harmonizing principle of the universe.
Is it our appreciation of PAGL in our study and prayer that allows us to see these things as miserable and therefore not be fooled?
Well, even people who don't know anything about PAGL can be aware of feeling miserable. But it is understanding the glory of PAGL and a constant appreciation and orientation towards it can be a great protection from falling into the temptation of joining the rest of the world in their quest for ego gratification. When you know that PAGL is far better than all ego gratification in the world, then you will not be tempted to be seduced and join the rest of the world in their constant struggle for compliments and admiration and praise and self-aggrandizement and showing off and bragging and then being disappointed and comparing the value of gifts. And I gave him a more expensive gift than he gave me. I wonder what he is thinking about me, etc., etc. Very childish and very ignorant.
Dr. Hora,
Yes?
brilliant. I'm wondering if those are the 12 days of Christmas. Hi, Dr. It's Roberta.
Yes, Roberta.
I feel I give my children gifts all year round. Creating a loving home and being a mother who's relatively available, and et cetera, et cetera. But at Christmas time, I have a desire to give them lots of gifts.
Yes.
Give them and pick them with their interest in mind. And this year I have several gifts that I would like to give them, but I realize that I cannot afford it. And I have, we discussed this prior to calling you, it's very easy, I could charge it. But I made a vow that I wasn't going to live within my means and I was no longer going to charge. Only if it was an emergency, but I wasn't going to charge. I have a conflict. I understand generosity in spiritual sense, of seeing them as spiritual beings. But I have the conflict. Apparently I don't know it well enough, because I have the conflict of wanting to buy them particular presents and feeling I do not have the money. And I would like some help on that.
Well, you deserve a lot of recognition and admiration for your intentions of being generous and not being able to afford it. You also deserve a lot of sympathy that you cannot have, and you have the money, and you also deserve a lot of compliments for trying to find a solution. My goodness, Roberta, you are just great.
Are you? You know, I don't understand, because I don't. You're saying that I want to give these presents so that I will look great to my children. Is that what you're saying?
Not only your children, but all of us too.
To all of you, I'm trying to impress everyone here.
Right.
But I came here to learn. If I didn't speak up, I wouldn't learn.
Well, you are learning how to show off, that's all. You're learning the wrong thing.
Could you straighten this out? Because I really am quite confused at this point.
Well, ask somebody else. They seem to understand that.
That I'm trying to show off.
You're not trying, you're doing it.
Okay. I don't understand. Dr. Hora?
Yes,
This is Joan.
yes.
We were discussing generosity before we called you.
Yes.
Could you help us to see more clearly the meaning of generosity? On our worksheet, we have a definition from metapsychiatric literature. Generosity is a loving response to manifest needs with no strings attached.
That's correct.
how that might be specifically applied in the matter time and gift giving and that kind of thing at Christmas. I have a feeling that didn't come out right.
It a little operationalism has snuck into it. You would like to know how to do it.
How to be generous, right?
Yeah, there is a difference between being generous and acting generously.
Oh, yeah. Okay, what is that?
One is existential and the other is operational.
What is the definition then? Was the definition of being generous?
Well, you gave the right definition. It's a loving response to manifest need. So
Manifest needs and the loving response are both always in consciousness.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, most people think of generosity as an activity, an operational approach. It is something that you do. You don't do it. You cannot do generosity. You can do manipulation.
Holiday is kind of particularly troublesome.
The what?
The holiday theme of particularly troublesome time.
Yes.
With the meaning of that, there are so many opportunities for self gratification and self confirmation.
Well, that's one thing we discussed it earlier, and now we are talking about the problem of generosity. See,
Yeah.
the common idea of generosity is giving something to people so that they should think well of us. And bribing people so they should be nice to us. You see, when you give a check to the doorman at the house, that's not generosity. That is institutionalized bribery. You have to do it.
Bribery and expression of generosity.
Well, if one were a generous individual, it could be. But you have certain expectations from the doorman the rest of the year, you see?
Yeah.
So you are just buying him off. And don't kid yourself about your generosity. You're just being clever and take care that he would be nice to you. The rest, not frown whenever he sees you. So there is generosity is very rare. It is spontaneous, and it is not an act, but a response. It's not an activity, but an action in response to manifest need.
But the same action could be generous on one hand and bribery on the other, depending on the consciousness of the giver.
Of course, we don't judge by appearances. We judge righteous judgment.
Doctor, I'd like to ask more about the manifest need. It seems that I just realized that although that is usually understood to be material, but doesn't necessarily have to be so.
Right.
And I think of our children that they don't need anything for Christmas.
Mhm.
But there are, of course, beings in consciousness.
Yeah.
Is that what is meant with the manifest need?
Well, there are all sorts of needs. Well, there is need for food when one is hungry. There is need for help when somebody's car breaks down on the road.
Oh, yes.
There are all sorts of needs that we run into every day.
Yes,
If we are truly generous, we respond to these things without premeditation.
I see. Well, for instance, right now we are all very aware of the need to treat the people in Africa.
Yes,
It would not be a manifest need that we can respond to.
of course, certainly. Certainly. But all around us, there are always evidences of manifest need. And we don't speculate about it when it happens right in front of us. We respond the best way we know how, without any kind of ulterior motive. And that's generosity. Essentially, it is spiritual love. It can be a smile, it can be a touch, it can be a clarification. It can be a tremendous thing. Somebody described that she was about to commit suicide or severely depressed and was on the subway stairs. She met a stranger who smiled at her with such genuine love that she gave up her plan to kill herself. That's generosity. Saved a life.
Yeah.
And so there are infinite ways that one can be truly generous, but we have to clearly understand what it is and what it is not, because there are great many phony and twisted ideas about generosity.
Dr. Hora, this is Jay.
Yes, Jay.
I seem real confused about what would be valid gift giving now at Christmas time. That, for example, I look at my parents and they don't seem to need anything like done picture food. And I'm sitting here in a lot of self-concern of how am I going to do Christmas.
Right.
Can you help me with this?
Yes. You would like to know how to make your parents think well of you.
That's right.
It has nothing to do with generosity. That's bribery, emotional bribery. Generosity is not concerned with gratitude. It's not concerned with getting anything in return. It's just a helpful response to a manifest need with no strings attached.
Dr. Hora, this is Jenny.
Yes, Ginny.
It occurs to me that there are a couple of people on my gift giving list that have been there for a long time or have been particularly troublesome for me. But perhaps the first step for me at Christmas this time could start with the generous thought toward them to begin to see them differently.
That's a good idea.
And if I do that, perhaps in an idea of an act or a gift that would truly give some goodness to them will come, and it cannot be stressful for me to catch that.
Yes, right. We always start with consciousness.
So the generosity of a loving response could first of all be in my consciousness.
That's correct.
In that respect, we can also say then that we say casually they don't need anything. Almost most of our relatives had materially everything. But if we would contemplate from a viewpoint of love,
That's right.
we would find something that they would need.
That's
Probably very intelligent and precise.
Yes. And what everyone really needs is to be seen as a living soul. And we can give that
We can give that.
to everybody that we think of or that we meet. Silently, secretly, we can affirm that they are living souls. That's the greatest gift we can give to anybody.
Dr. Hora, each time we have spoken to you about our self-concern that has to do with the desire to have people think well of us
Yes,
and to be confirmed as nice, as good, as loving, as important to other people.
right.
And recently, our spiritual student was telling me his need to be important, to be recognized. He was seeing in his own thoughts this particular idea that he wants this.
Yes,
And as he was describing, his secret word, I was thinking also of my secret words of wanting to be admired or recognized or seen as lovely or, kind of the little unique pattern of what we think the goodies are we would get from other people in these situations.
yes,
And as I listened to his secret wants, it seemed to me that everything he wanted was so freely given that, and when I looked around at all the different students that study, when they say, well, this is what I really want. I want to be seen as lovely. I want to be seen as a good, loving, beneficial presence. But actually, these things are true about them. That they are already seen and appreciated and loved, but somehow the state of wanting it makes us starve for it on the human. In other words, because we have this secret desire, we don't see that we are beloved, that good is caring for us and folding for us, that our uniqueness is appreciated. Is this true even on a human level, that these things are freely given, but we don't see it?
Well, of course, all our problems boil down to the fact that we don't see, that we are not sufficiently awake. If we could see, we would be enlightened. That's what we are working for, in the direction. That's where we are moving. Ex tenebris lux. You know what that means?
No, I don't.
No?
Oh,
Ex tenebris lux. Who can tell what that
out
is?
of darkness,
Into the light.
the light.
Yes, this is our journey.
Dr. Hora, this is Linda.
Yes, Linda.
About gift giving and responding to manifest needs and generosity and such. In my family, there are some obvious material needs that I carry that can be met in gift giving in a small way, and that's pretty easy. But there are other members of the family, especially I have just a couple of members of the family who really don't need anything material at all. And if anything, they have quite more than they need in a materialistic kind of a way. And so I have this inclination that what they need, as we've talked about, is a meditation or prayer, or I need that to clear my. But prayer is always a good thing. And there's this part of me that says that if I'm going to give somebody a meditation for Christmas, I need to send them a Christmas party, tell them what I'm doing. Somehow, I don't have the guts to do this silently and secretly.
You don't have the guts?
No, because there's part of me that but they have to know I'm giving them something, or they're going to be angry and think I'm not giving them anything.
Yeah.
And then they will get angry.
Uh-huh. And you don't want that.
No.
Yeah.
And
Well, Jesus said something very relevant.
Oh, good. What was it?
He said, suffer it to be so for now, for so it becometh to fulfill all righteousness. What do you think did he mean?
Does it mean that I need to go ahead and have the guts to pray without telling anybody?
No.
You know what, Doctor? Whenever you tell me something and I don't know the meaning of it, it's because I'm lost on the issue.
You're lost on the issue.
Yes.
Well, all right, we'll save you then.
That would be nice.
Is there anyone among you who understands this saying of Jesus and its relevancy to our topic? Shall I repeat it?
Yes, everybody says yes.
Suffer it to be so, so for now, for so it becometh to fulfill all righteousness.
Well, I think it has to do with our being willing to tolerate being personally uncomfortable in a larger concern, which is that we may grow and that we may allow God's good to be manifest. In other words, it might look and feel negative to us at the moment, but if we can go ahead on our best sense of what is valid, then we will find that actually blessing comes out of it for everyone. Is that anywhere near?
Yes, it's coming a little closer. Essentially what he was saying, we are not flaunting social customs. We are not flaunting them, not rejecting, not spurning. If the custom is to come to a Christmas dinner with some presents, so we bring some presents, well knowing that this is really just rendering unto Caesar what is Caesar's, pretending it in Jesus' name.
I thought it had the opposite meaning. I see.
No.
So we don't have to fight these.
We don't fight it, and we don't provoke people by telling them that this is not thing. And so when Jesus came up to John and asked to be baptized by John with water, and John says, how is it that you ask me? I should ask you, because you are the messenger from God. And he said to him, well, let's put up with this formality so as not to provoke the people who are around. So he submitted to this ceremony of being baptized by water. So it becometh to fulfill all righteousness. We are not going to be a provocation to people, but we will understand that this is just going along with formalities, but the essential issues are in our consciousness, and that's where we are really generous, by blessing people with the knowledge of their true identity. We are a beneficial presence in the world, but if the custom is to be a beneficent person, we will submit to that also. Not out of hypocrisy, but in order not to hurt the sensibilities of people who believe this to be important.
That's very helpful, Dr. Hora. And I can see that's a much more humble approach also.
That's right.
And I think that also maybe then healed another problem that I've had about gift giving to someone who has really who has far more material things than really might even be healthy, at least in my view. I have this idea that if I give someone who has all these things another thing, then I'm contributing to their materialism. And with this in mind, then, it's just the observance of a social custom in a humble manner.
That's right.
Thank you. That really clears up an awful lot for me. Thank you.
Aren't you glad you came today?
Oh,
Dr. Hora, this is Michael.
Yes, Michael.
Would you clarify the practical aspect of harmony over the holiday? First, that the holiday seems to stimulate the cultural values, the love of excitement.
Yes.
And I've noticed that I'm indulging in that. And I would like a...
You must be having a ball.
Yes, sir. I recognize the need to further understand harmony.
You have a lot of eggnog ready? So, I didn't get your question.
I would appreciate further clarification
Of
harmony.
what? Clarification of harmony?
Yes, sir.
Well, harmony is in your consciousness. You go through the motions of conforming to social exigencies, but the harmony must be in your consciousness. And that makes you a beneficial presence in any situation.
But what is this harmony in consciousness?
It is the awareness of your true identity as a living soul, always in the presence of God.
That no activity is personally motivated. That would be a manifestation of harmony.
No activity is personally motivated.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
That's what I got out of what you said. That is, as long as I'm trying to do something, there can't be any harmony. But if there's a response, then that would be harmony. Is that correct?
Well, a response, of course, is an enlightened way of action, and but it's not so clear cut. You know, you have to, for instance, put on a clean shirt if that is the custom. But essentially, the quality of consciousness with which we meet people and the world is very important. And we are always guarding that. We are mindful of it. Our presence is determined by the quality of our thoughts.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Hora,
Yes.
this is Elizabeth.
Yes, Elizabeth.
I've noticed a lot with my clients and with myself also that the idea of being together in a warm family climate at holiday time is real troublesome. And right at this time, my daughter's family is kind of breaking up, and I'm having a hard time not experiencing a lot of sadness about that. Could you help me to understand what is more valid?
Or what is your sadness? What is the meaning of your experience?
Well, I'm thinking about the children and being in the midst of a broken home right at the holiday. The grandchildren.
I see. Well, you know that there is no such situations where God wouldn't be present and which God couldn't heal, so you just keep in mind the truth that God is present and God is in control, and you are not in a position to judge what is good or what is bad. It may be good. Yes is good and no is also good, provided God is present in our consciousness at any time. So you view the situation in the context of God, and you will find that there is solace.
Yes, that already is helping me very much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Hyder, this is Jenny.
Yes, Ginny. Speak up, Ginny.
I'd love to. I have terrible case laryngitis.
You believe to have a laryngitis.
Pardon me?
You believe that you have a laryngitis,
Yes, I do.
but God never made it.
I'd like to ask you a question that I know part of what my laryngitis is about. But there's several things that-
You're seeming laryngitis.
Pardon?
You're seeming laryngitis.
Thank you. I don't quit crying or won't let it. It's been a very troublesome thing for my relationship with my parents. And in the last 8 or 9 years, there's been an awful lot of incidents that have begun to break up my beliefs in all of those old fantasies. Just after Thanksgiving, I made a trip to Texas to see an aunt and uncle that I have not seen in about 15 years, that are very much like I remember my parents being. And it was probably the worst and the best trip I've ever made in my whole life. And part of my seeming laryngitis is still some of the stirring that took place there. I am now comfortable with not needing to be attached to my parents in any way. But at Christmas, it becomes troublesome last year for Christmas, I sent a couple of gifts home, and I thought I had done it quite clearly. But my father returned the bathrobe I had sent to him with the comment that he already had one. And I haven't seen him in 10 years, so I had no way of knowing. Anyhow, this year, I am free from all of that, but I realize they are very elderly people, and neither one of them are very well. As their eldest child, I could be helpful in this situation because my financial situation has improved quite a little. And I've been thinking about what you told me about the loving response in consciousness. Can you help me I really feel guilty at walking completely away from them, and yet they want nothing either from me nor to do with me. Can you help me clarify that somehow?
Send back the bathrobe and tell him to take more baths.
Here. Maybe you need it for
Now, clearly there is hostility between you and them and vice versa. And the best thing you can do is forgive them. Not just formally, but in your consciousness.
I've been working with the forgiveness book, and I know there is still work to do.
Yeah, that's what needs to be done.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
But thank you very much. This was a wonderful holiday present.
It was nice.
Here got today in the seminar.
You're welcome. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Have a nice holiday.
You too.